You are now tuned in to the OSINTCurious Podcast.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of OSINTCurious Webcast Podcast. I am your host for this week. I am Micah Hoffman. I'm joined by my guest stars, Kirby Plessas. Say hi, Kirby.
Hey, everyone.
How about you, Dutch OSINT guy?
Hi, everyone.
And we have on the phone, we have Technisette.
Well, hello.
And Sector 035 also on the phone.
Hi there.
We are going to provide you some really cool content today. I'm very excited about this. We've got some questions that were hashtagged to us. We've got some news from around the world. And we've got a little skills episode at the end of this podcast that we're going to do, just like what Kirby did last week or 2 weeks ago with the RSS feed aggregator and alert system, which, Kirby, I have to say, I kind of gave up on RSS when Google said, "Hey, we're getting rid of the reader." But like you said, it's silly to abandon that technology. It was very cool what you did.
Thank you. Yeah, it's still out there. You just have to juggle between different RSS readers. And I am going to share my OPML. I'm just going to clean it up a little bit, and I will absolutely share. It won't be 2,000 feeds because I'm not going to put like targets in there, but I'll share some of the other resources.
And for those people that aren't familiar with an OPML, what is that?
I have no idea what it stands for, but basically your collection of RSS, that includes, the folders that you renamed, etc. So
cool. So it's like your bookmarked list of RSS feeds.
Exactly.
Nice. And that'll be helpful because people can just take that, put it right into whatever reader they want, and then they can be like you, Kirby.
They'll clone me.
That's what I want to be. Cool. Well, does anybody have anything they want to say right off the bat, or shall we get right into the news?
One thing.
Go ahead, Nico.
Maybe we should let the people know that we are doing this once every other week and not every week. Because
that's exactly what I was going to bring up too. Mm-hmm.
I think you just did. Yeah. So we've started out really strong with a lot of content, both on the blog and on the podcast here. And what we're finding is that we've got a lot of things, but we need a little bit more time to develop some more quality, more in-depth content in some places. Like this week's blog post, I think, is going to be really cool. Technisette wrote it, and Dutch OSINT guy and I contributed. I think having that little extra space in between our podcasts, webcasts, and our blogs is going to help us deliver even better content.
Agree.
All right, let's get into news from around the world. We're going to start off with some of the listener-supplied comments. This comes from CyberSquarePeg, who tweeted to hashtag OSINTCurious that they're not a technical person, and their question is about learning Python and how hard is it to learn Python, and how would it benefit us from a OSINT perspective. Does anybody want to talk about that?
I will answer the question. It helps me, especially when I have to grab large amounts of plain text data most of the time. Then a Python script helps me out automating it. But the same counts for a nice JavaScript script, which can help you. It's for me, it's tooling what can make your life more easy, and you have to do less manual. And it gives you quicker insight to go into the actual analysis of OSINT information.
So from my perspective, I 100% agree with you that to do OSINT, you don't have to know a programming language. However, the more programming languages you know, the more you understand how the tools that you're going to use work and how to leverage Python or Perl or Ruby or Go or some of these other, or JavaScript, as you mentioned, the more you understand those, the faster you can get access to information. Now, there's two different levels of understanding Python. One is being able to run somebody else's program, which is really not hard. And I'll show you that during the skills portion of today. And the other one is writing your own code, which is a little bit more challenging, but there are a ton of Python tutorials and other helper websites out there that you can do. Some of them actually allow you to type in a web page, so you don't have to install and configure Python on your local system. You can just type the Python code in the web page to solve challenges, and then it renders the code and runs the script in a web page. It's really slick. And those are all free, too.
And I'd agree. You can connect to APIs if you're using Python. Whereas before, if you're just on the web, you're going to have to depend on somebody else to pull that data, or else you're just not going to get that raw data. In some cases, especially from Twitter, there's a lot more in the API than there is visible.
Right. And for those that are not used to the terminology, API keys are application programming interfaces, which are ways that we, usually from a script or mobile application or other application, query some web server, and retrieve the information to be displayed inside of that tool. So it's not the human readable web page. And actually, in a little bit, when we get to the OpenCorporates, I'll show you one of the APIs so that you can see what it looks like. Cool. All right, let's move on. Another person, I'm going to mess up the name here, but again, on Twitter, tweeting to hashtag OSINTCurious, Navlis mentioned this spying challenge. I think there was a PDF on this. Did anybody check it out?
Well, I checked it out. It was a write-up of the 2018. It's a Capture the Flag event. And, well, if you look at the write-up of it, it's a 76-page document, and they write up the whole Capture the Flag. It's an OSINT Capture the Flag, and it's really interesting to look at it because it goes in depth on how you can write up your findings. It basically is an analysis. It's an all-in-one document. When you read it, it's everything you want to know on how to report an OSINT investigation or some research, and it gives you some nice new insights in tools you can use, how to use them, which skills you might need to find certain stuff, which mindset you can do, and also on how to report, how to make clear to your client or the ones reading your report, how to tell a story, what you want to tell. It was a really interesting document to read, and I think since it's a 2019 write-up, there will be a 2018 write-up, and there will be a 2009 event. If it's so, I will participate because it looks like a really fun Capture the Flag.
Right. I think they mentioned that it started in 2016, so there's
correct.
a couple of years, so I'm expecting a new one. Mm-hmm.
Started off in 2016. A few things, because I remember reading this was done during Nuit du Hack in France, and if I'm not mistaken, that falls together with Hack in Paris. So there's a good chance that this year it will be, if it is connected to Nuit du Hack, then it will be somewhere in the second or third week of June in France again. And the cool thing is, it wasn't just an OSINT challenge. It also consisted of social engineering, physical security, tracking people, reconnaissance in live situations. I think they used actors and everything like that. So a lot of, it's called the spying challenge for a reason, right?
Oh, it sounds like there's a lot of work put into it too. That's pretty neat. And this is one of the things that I've been seeing more of, and I love it. The fact that in OSINT, we are now seeing a lot more opportunities for people to practice OSINT in safe and learning methods. The Trace Labs Challenge, the ICTF during DEF CON, all of these new CTFs to challenge people, to help teach people skills. I love it. I think it's great.
And maybe we need to plan a trip to Paris then in this summer.
That sounds great. All right, we're moving on. We're going to go to a really cool event that happened just this past week. Justin Seitz, the creator of Hunchly up there in Canada, he had a webcast. Now, I know that some of you were not able to be on there, but it was recorded, and on the screen right now we have a video. Well, we show the video in the web page, And I think, did anybody want to mention some of the cool stuff that he did?
Well, for me, it was really interesting to know at least 3 ways to set up Hunchly through Tor. It was to, I think, the Chrome browser, to a virtual machine, and another way, which I forgot because I don't use that last option any time in life. And it was really cool to see Justin go hands-on on how to use his almost perfect internet investigation tool to go in the deep web. But it's always so much fun to see Justin live, because he goes from left to right and he doesn't care if something goes wrong. It's a roller coaster ride to look at, and you always learn stuff. You always learn something when looking at his webinars.
Yeah. I, again, have to agree with you that I love Justin's not only presentation style, but he has such good quality content, and he thinks it through before doing it, but he does things live. So if things mess up, he's like, hey, this is the real world stuff, and stuff goes wrong. In fact, I think Dutch OSINT guy, you actually made him break a streak during the webcast. Is that right?
I deny everything.
You deny everything. Yeah. Justin was very proud. He says, yeah, I haven't cursed on a webcast in a long time. And then Dutch OSINT guy posted something in the chat. Man, made him curse.
They see me trolling.
But one of the things that, and again, all of these links are going to be in the show notes that are hosted on the OSINTCurious website. The neat thing about this is that Justin always thinks through the talk before he does it. And so there are these great worksheets, and we see here in the middle of the page, for those of you that are looking on screen, this download worksheet, which is a PDF that allows you to essentially go through what he covered in his webcast, but do it at your own speed on your own system. So if you're interested in setting up a Windows shortcut or something like that to get to launch Google Chrome, but send its data or send its traffic through listening Tor proxy, you can do that. And he's has some great PDFs there too. So well done, Justin. The next option, the next topic is this book that Dutch, you want to talk about it?
Yes, I want to talk about it. It's called Hack the World with OSINT by Chris Kubecka. I recently met her at the small Dutch OSINT Con because she lives in the Netherlands, and it was I think it was the first day she actually got the book herself. So I got a glance then, and then it got me interested. I ordered it, and it's not a book that you read on the couch laid back. It's a book that you put on your lap and you reproduce what she is telling you story-wise in the book. I thought it was really interesting because I think it's 80% on how you can go in depth in census.io using, let's say, census Dorking. And for me, it's an interesting topic because I really need to learn and step my game up when it comes to the Internet of Things or Internet connected things, and combining that with OSINT and my field of work, OSINT analysis. So this was for me a good book to learn how that world of OSINT works and what you can leverage and where you can pivot into, and which tools you can use for that, but especially how it's interesting how Chris Kubecka looks at the world through census.io and how she uses it to find vulnerabilities in government systems, in, let's say, SCADA networking kind of stuff. So I think it's especially interesting if you are in this field. Internet connected devices and what you can find on them. Interesting book. Put it on your lap, do it page for page, and learn what you need to learn.
Looking forward to getting it.
Sector, did you have something you want to say?
Yeah, I'm just listening to Dutch OSINT guy. Maybe we should make an IoT special in one of the coming weeks, and we'll go over some of the census dogs and see what you can extract from census, because it is indeed a really cool website.
Well, maybe we can get Chris Kubecka on, and maybe she can show us something cool.
That's also an awesome idea.
And for those of you that are on the podcast, that is the book Hack the World with OSINT, Hacker's Gonna Hack. It's by Chris Kubecka. And check the show notes. It's about a $40 book or £40 book, depending on where you're at. And it's available on Amazon now. So check it out. I think, would you, and now I haven't looked at it or anything, Dutch OSINT guy, but would you say that it's of the same resource value as like the Intel Techniques book that's out there, where great reference manual for doing your investigations? It's not like a novel though.
No, it's not like a novel. It's more a reference book. Like I said, you put it on your lap and you put your laptop in front of you and you reproduce what's in the book to learn on how these techniques work.
Cool. Thanks for bringing that to our attention.
Yeah.
And speaking of bringing it to our attention, you had a blog post in the past couple of weeks using OSINT for your personal threat model.
Yeah. It got me triggered because I got a lot of feedback from the Security Awareness Summit, which I did in London, but that was not so in-depth as some people wanted it to be. It was a workshop, and now I wanted to go a little bit more in-depth on what you can think about as a private person or an employee of a company. What threats can be out there by just being you on the internet? Is it necessary to put in all details of yourself for people to guess your password because it's related to your dog or your pet? Is it necessary to have pictures from in and around your house everywhere on your Facebook or your Twitter? It's just your personal threat model, because some people travel all around the world and also to countries or places that people can have bad intentions. Well, you don't need to tell them everything. And with OSINT techniques nowadays, you can learn so much about people which might pose a threat to you or your loved ones, for instance, or the people around you. And I wanted to go a little bit more in depth on that. And I think I touched it on a level.
Yeah, I agree. Wow, I say that after everything you say. I think this is
like
the
that.
first podcast ever that I've actually agreed with you on every point. We'll have to disagree on something coming up. But yeah, and that's what I really love about OSINT, is that we use it professionally and to solve our customers' problems and things, but we also use it personally to figure out, hey, what's out there about me, about my loved ones, about my friends that shouldn't be out there. And as we've talked about before, the more your privacy increases, the less that's out there on the internet about you, the more you use the security controls, the harder it is to do that open source intelligence about somebody. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I also wanted to point out, if you are a person who makes a lot of effort of staying offline, there will always be someone who puts something about you online.
Sure.
And some people forget that often. There's always someone around you who will post that picture at a party or at a barbecue or in the library where you were on.
Yeah, and with all of the facial recognition things that are out there in the world, I was just watching that video that I think you had posted, Nico, about the person over in, I forget her name and I apologize, but it was the security researcher over in Australia giving the how to disappear talk, and some of the technologies that she was showing over there about facial recognition facial recognition tied to cameras over in China, and they will determine, hey, this is a person that's a man based upon their gait, based upon how they're looking, then this is a person, and if they get a picture of the face, here's more information about them. Or in shopping malls, how when you're looking at the little map of the store, of where all the stores are, there's a camera there that's looking at your face, also maybe interacting or recording information from your Bluetooth device, your phone, your watch, to track you and to recognize who you are, so that they can deliver interesting ads to your device, or appropriate ads to interact with you better. This stuff is incredibly important. So take care of what you can, get it off the internet, and then the other stuff we're going to have to minimize by like wearing masks and stuff.
Yeah.
What do you think, Kirby?
I got my mask ready. So.
Okay. All right. Cool.
My tinfoil hat and tinfoil underwear, right?
You know, I hadn't thought about that. Anytime anybody says that, I always think of those underwear that had like mesh in them that would say interesting things whenever you'd go through the scanners at TSA.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was like, F off.
I think you both have troubled minds, but
we definitely do. Nico, you also posted something about this filemirrors.info page, which allows, what does it do? What does this website do?
Well, I came across it, and I forgot where I came across it, but probably Twitter or somewhere. Someone tweeted it out, and I tested what it does. It's a search engine for those file upload sites like RabbitShare, Hotfire, I don't know, Mega, whatever. But those contain interesting information, and sometimes people will upload to those free file uploading sharing hosts, and you can't find them anymore. But this is let's say a custom search engine like in Google, but then specifically for file sharing. And I found some information in it already, which I couldn't find regularly with Google easily. I had to make a really complex custom dork, and with this it was just 1 or 2 keywords and it works. So I thought it was interesting and helpful, especially for looking for specific files.
Yeah, there have been some other ones in the past. I don't know, if they're still up or not, but one of the things that I used to find on these were like roster, or people phone numbers, things like that.
Yeah, this is basically the same thing. It's just a helpful extra tool, which makes your life a little bit easier.
Yeah. Again, I think some people were talking about this on Twitter, that you can do all these things manually, but the more we use tools or Python or things like that, the faster we can sometimes gather the information, and then we have more time to analyze it and figure out where to pivot and where to search for more data.
Yeah.
Okay. And then one of the things that was interesting that happened, OpenCorporates is an online repository database of corporations around the world. And Nico, I think you again posted that this German company data is now searchable within OpenCorporates. Is that?
Yeah, it was. I thought it was interesting because they added millions of records for especially German companies to OpenCorporates, which, well, Germany is a big country and they have a lot of international companies in it, which you might want to look into for a certain case. And now you can with OpenCorporates. So you can search for companies, company names, or officer names. And it also has an API, which you can call. And it has a really valuable company information. So if you have never used it and you are doing research into companies or company names or their CEOs, you should try it because it's a really valuable tool for OSINT investigations. And now with millions of extra German companies.
Yeah, and the cool thing is you can see that on the right. You also see some inactive ones. And I just actually searched on a company name, which was a one-man company that I ran and owned, and it is in there. And I stopped that years and years ago. So they have been scraping also historical data, which might also be of interest.
Oh,
I think it's very cool, but it's also quite weird from my point of view because Germany has some people worried about privacy and stuff. So just recently, I think it was 1 or 2 days ago, there was this privacy group of people, and not quite sure what the English word is, so I'm sorry. And they actually told Facebook that they're going to be restricting the data they are allowed to gather in Germany. And also there have been a number of cases where people were very angry that their homes were on Google Street View and they want to take them off. And there's been a lot of privacy concerns in Germany. So opening up the whole corporate database of Germany is quite interesting to see that they're actually like allowing a website like OpenCorporates to have an insight in the German company database.
Yeah, but there's of course a big difference between gathering information about someone by tracking them all over the web on each and every website that can grab the cookies of Facebook or the trackers of Facebook and gathering your whole private life and your search histories and all that kind of stuff, or gather and collect data that are out there that are already open, like all the company registers all over the world, and combine them into one big searchable database. So those are two distinct things, of course.
True. Maybe it just pointed out, it was more in my field of attention because the news about the Facebook and that they're restricting the data they're gathering just after or before I read the article on the German databases being, German companies being in OpenCorporates. So might be my point of view from that because of the whole news situation.
Yeah. So one of the things that while we're on OpenCorporates, one of the things that I love about OpenCorporates is that it's really easy to get additional information. For instance, on this page here, you see I've for those of you on the podcast, I've gone to opencorporates.com and searched for the company Bayer, the maker of pharmaceuticals and drugs and things. And this is the Bayer Consulting GmbH group. The neat thing is that, and I talk about this in my class, is that when you're looking at a web page, that's what they want you to see. But if you start accessing the website from the API perspective or from another perspective, sometimes you can gain more information. Let me just show you how easy it is sometimes. We talked about APIs earlier. Check this out. To look at this same data via the API, we just scroll down to the page. In the lower right, it says Open Data. Get this info as JSON, XML, or RDF. I'm going to click on JSON, which is JavaScript Object Notation. It's a way of pairing up names and values. As we can see here, we've got company number and then this K1101R number here. We've got jurisdiction code DE. What this is meant for like a web app or some type of computer-to-computer communication. And then the computer would go ahead and put this into some visualization system like a web page or an app and just show you certain pieces of this. The reason why it becomes so important to us is that we can get that extra information. On the previous page, we didn't see this created at, updated at, and retrieved at, but now we actually have access to it. And say, oh, I'm clicking too much, sorry. We actually have access to some metadata about this record in OpenCorporates. And JSON is really easy to use within Python, Go, and other libraries, even in JavaScript. It's really easy to parse it. So we can record this information, save it locally to our system, and this has all of the URLs that we would need for this company. And the reason and why we know it's an API is if you look up here at the top, we see api.opencorporates.com. By clicking on that simple link on the page, we are now using the API. And that's what being OSINTCurious is all about. It's about clicking shit. It's about being curious about, wait, what does this open data mean? Now, if you are interested in the API, you can come back to the main web page. And up at the top, I'm just going to remove the search string today. And up at the top, it does mention the API, and it has a pretty good documentation about how to use the API. While this is loading, Kirby, do you have something you want to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that there is a really cool JSON page for Hooksy too. I mean, completely different website, WHOXY, but they do the registration for websites, and you can grab their JSON module as well, which is really nice.
Cool. Yeah, so APIs are sometimes a little scary for analysts because the data is not in a normal web page type of format. It looks a little different, and depending on whether you're using Google Chrome or Firefox, it might look even worse. Google Chrome has a built-in JSON parser, so it makes it look very nice and hierarchical. But let's do a company search here. Here's company search, and if we scroll down, it usually will give you an example. Aha, there we go. It gives you a URL. Now, this API doesn't require any authentication. We can just paste that in and see what happens. And you see the actual format here. Search $Q equals Bank of Scotland with pluses in between each of the words. And now we have all of these results that could be very important to us. So, just a little cool thing. Some APIs do require money. They do require you to buy an API key or whatever, and we'll talk about that probably in another episode. Anything else about OpenCorporates or APIs?
Nope.
Nope.
All right. Back to you, Dutch. You want to talk about this Dropbox Google Dorking?
Yeah, Francisco Poli, I think he's also the developer of Twint, tweeted out an interesting tweet which got my attention. He found a way to explore open Dropbox folders, which always is interesting. So when you do a site Dropbox.com, you don't even have to do the quotation marks /sh. You can just add it to the Dropbox.com URL, and it will give you all there is. No, you put the /sh behind the .com.
Oh.
And then you got a good query, a good dork, and it can give you some really interesting insights in certain, especially when you combine these with keywords like photos or Excel document or employee overview, that kind of stuff. And it could, in potential, give you that little piece of extra you are looking for. And I always like Google Dorking. I'm a little bit of a Google Dorking hoarder addict for life, I think, because it's when you get bored sometimes, I just start to play around with dorks.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Google Dorking as well. Go-to.
Yeah. Well, again, the more you understand your tools, the more cool things you can find.
Yeah. And this was just a tweet which I wanted to point out. So it's a fairly simple dork, but it can get you so much interesting information.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
All right. Kirby, has anybody else tweeted out to #OSINTCurious that we need to, with topics that we should discuss?
I know that we had quite a few, so let me double check here. Got my reading glasses on. I know that, okay, so we had someone asking about a walkthrough about using breach data, usernames and emails. The person who is Killswitch56 said that he took notes from the Intel Techniques People webinar in December, but he would like to have another point of view. Also wondering about needing to have an account for dehashed to see results. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I have an account there just because it comes in handy, and I pay for it when I feel like I need to pay for it, because they have a model that you can pay for a day, a week, a month, or a year. So depending on how much questions I have and how much time I need to spend on it, I will pay for it. And it gave me some successes. Sometimes you want to look up a certain hash and see which emails addresses are connected to that hash or specific password, or sometimes you want to look it up the other way around. You want to fill in an email address and want to see which unhashed passwords pop up, and learn from that. It helps. You can also go for downloading those compilation lists, which recently you hit the news, and you could do it, just index them yourself and make them searchable. It's just what you want. Dehashed it's fairly up to date, and it's not that pricey. I think you pay around $2 for a week or something. And well, I mean, to be fair, when you download these amounts of data, you are bound to get terabytes of data, and you have to index them and own them yourself. And this is more easy. So, yeah.
I really appreciate when the price setting is so that you can do it in increments, just in case you don't need to like have a whole year worth.
Right. And I actually did the same thing. I think there's a bunch of the sites where they will collect the hashes and the other usernames and passwords and emails from these data dump sites, and then they make it easily searchable. I remember from my pen testing days, part of my job was to go out to Pastebin, go out to some of these other data sharing sites, collect those stolen credentials, and then make my own database and manage it and all, so that if I ever had a pen test where somebody's email address was there, I could go ahead and check it against my personal database. What these people do with Dehashed and some of the other sites is they make it so simple to access that data. And the neat thing is this is not just a American type of thing, and not just a United States type of dumps in here. I love doing this here for those of you that are on screen. I've logged into Dehashed with my account, and I've searched for the word password. And when you click on somebody's name, it shows their password. Yeah, that's great, but I love doing translate.google.com. Does anybody know what the Russian word for password is?
I don't know.
Google knows.
What is it?
I said Google knows.
Yeah.
Google knows, right? So here I'm taking the Russian word with Cyrillic characters, and let's search for that. And what you see is when you do that, check out the URLs. Now we are these emails. It's somebody at yandex.ru, somebody at mail.ru. So the data that's in here isn't just United States specific data. It's truly worldwide, and you can search with different character sets to find passwords that our users might use or other information. I think that it can be very useful when used in concert with other techniques.
And when you go back to the blog I wrote 2 weeks ago, this is also a valuable tool to look up yourself. If you are just wondering, is my password in there? Well, you can try. Maybe you need to reset it. Maybe you need to do it. Maybe your spouse is in there and you need to do a password reset because you haven't got a notification. Some of these password platforms will let you set a notification when your email pops up in a certain list. They will let you know, and then it's time to take action.
Absolutely. Okay, so next question for the OSINTCurious hashtag. Sarah Thompson, who is exploiting niche. She says, I was getting better at construction Facebook graph searches with several intersect variables, and just when she was getting the hang of it, seems the whole system was gone. What happened? So we had a little bit more of a conversation about this. It was specifically the groups search that she was doing seemed to be gone. I know that most of the Facebook graph searches still work. There's a few that are not working, and very specifically on my on both researchclinic.net/Facebook or my own, which is is.gd/Facebook matrix. The group searches seem to be having a problem. It was, fairly recent that the Facebook locked down the private groups, not the secret groups, because that was never searchable, but the closed groups. The membership list was hard to search at that point, and her search wasn't bringing up the public group even with in conjunction with something else. So again, theoretically, you could do facebook.com/search/ the ID number of a group /members and get the member list of the group, and then put it in conjunction with people who live in a certain area or like something else, things like that. And it wasn't working for her. So I was wondering, have you guys come across any problems like that?
I did. We'll put the Twitter maybe in the show notes. I ran into this tweet, from Jan Terse. Maybe I'm not pronouncing it correctly, but he tweeted out a Facebook graph search. Geez, sorry guys. Where you would be able to find the most active member of a group. And for some reason, it didn't work for me, and I replied to the tweet, and other people would be saying, well, it works for me, but for some reason it appears to be working for some of us, but not all of us, and I'm not quite sure why this is happening. So yeah, I had some problems too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so,
but no, go ahead, Kirby.
Oh, I was just going to say, I do intend to make a pretty in-depth Facebook graph blog article, and I'm going to have to explore that. And I definitely would like that tweet as well, Technisette, just to see if that works for me, because I don't think that I've ever actually searched that one before. What do you think, Dutch?
Well, I think, especially the last year, I think certain graph searches are like constantly being turned on and off or tweaked. It's like Facebook is exploring or experimenting with something, which we don't know what they are experimenting with, but it's giving us a hard time and a lot of headaches. But I also run into a lot of people who are trying to reproduce certain graph searches, and they say it won't work, or they come up to me, I've tried this dork, or I tried this dork from this site or this site, and it doesn't work with the Facebook graph searching. And I ask some questions, and then you notice people haven't set their language to US English, and then the whole graph search won't work at all. So you still, because for instance in the Netherlands, when you put it on, you have a little bit of graph search options, but when you switch your language settings within the settings menu in Facebook to US English, a whole new world opens up of graph searches. So that could be where some people are running into. Just check your language settings in your account and put them to US English, because then the whole graph search opens up to you.
Good point. I didn't even think about that at all either.
And recently, one of my favorite graph searches is failing. I just checked to see if it's still failing, and it still is. It's the facebook.com/friendship/ either user ID number 1 / user ID number 2, or username number 1, username number 2. It would show up all the friends they have in common, but it also shows when they exactly became friends. And it's not showing anymore. And I tried numerous ways to find out if there's any way I could retrieve this, but apparently Facebook kicked it out.
Yeah, I've noticed that as well. I left it on my Facebook matrix for a while. I'm hoping that it comes back, because they do take away and give them back. I've noticed that as well. Okay, you ready for the next one? Okay, so this one I think goes right to sector, because somebody's asking about shadows. So this is Samdev Sangwan, I guess?
Yeah, Samdev. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, a couple of webcasts ago, we were talking about my article about getting the time that a photo was taken. Did a little write-up about on that, and I still had to do a part 2. But I'm going to combine all kinds of other stuff, and it is going to be one really big write-up, and I'm going to treat it more in depth, and I'm going over everything that I know and everything that I'm still learning. But it will take some time. But, well, he said he loves me, so I really have to make sure that I keep him happy.
Absolutely. Hey, I don't know if you're familiar with Hacker Factor. Are you familiar with that sector? It's it's a blog. It's the guy who runs photoforensics.com.
Oh, okay.
Might have some resources for you in that section as well.
I can always have a look.
Yes. All right. Okay, next question. So GT Sapientia Sec asks what your thoughts are on Facebook making all the social media messaging platforms so that you can communicate across the platforms, given that Facebook removed the ability some time ago to search via mobile numbers. Does this open up new opportunities for Facebook? And I think this is in reference to the news that they are going to tie their platforms closer together. In my opinion, we can't really tell what it's going to really shake out to be yet, and that there's still ways to search for phone numbers on Facebook, right? Anybody else want to add something to that? And then I'll talk about the phone numbers.
Well, yeah, what you say, we can only tell what new things there are when it happens. So for now, it's just an intention they told to be having. But when it happens, we'll see if it brings new things into our world.
Yeah, I mean, I think what it will mean is that the user accounts will now be tied across all three platforms. I think it's WhatsApp, Instagram, and Facebook are now going to be on the same type of combined platform. And so you're going to have user accounts here on each of the different platforms that are tied together and linked either with UIDs or something else. The question will become, to your point, Duchess and Guy, that whether we as users, as investigators, have access to that information, or whether that's just something that Facebook or does on the back end and doesn't allow us to see, and only time will tell.
That's true. And I think that it might end up being something on the back end, because there's going to be some people who maybe they didn't connect their WhatsApp account to their public Facebook account, and letting that information public may be a problem. So the thing about the phone numbers, though, searching for via mobile numbers, there's still a couple of ways to do that. So the first thing is, of course, Messenger. Messenger still allows you to search for phone numbers and emails as long as that person didn't mark them private in their own account. If the person did mark it private in their account, there's still two things you could do. You could try and upload a contact list with just that number in there into the Facebook friend finder and let it point out the user to you, or you could try the I'm locked out of my account sort of thing. Of course, the danger there is it's going to alert the person that that somebody's trying to get into their account, but it doesn't always do that on Facebook. And then you got about a 50-50 chance of it actually pointing out the account, regardless of the privacy settings. And this is something I test out almost every week on myself. It does alert me. I do search for myself constantly, so then I'm going to guess that's why. But you have to worry about that. Like if the person you're looking for, if you're worried about them getting alerted, if you think that's going to cause them to shut down their whole Facebook account, you probably don't want to do that. But
I've noticed that Facebook does send out these alerts when the person who's trying to retrieve the password is in another country than the last login of the Facebook account that is being used.
Yeah, that might be one of the things.
I had it a couple of times when I was abroad, and somebody would try to look into my Facebook account in the Netherlands. I would get an alert saying, hey, somebody from this region or this IP logged into your account. So it looks like it also has something to do with the country you're from or investigating from.
Possibly. I can almost guarantee mine's because I search myself so often, but could also, there could be a lot of factors.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Vigilius 24 asks us, think about a topic combining OSINT with analysis so that you have real actionable intelligence as the end project. I think, we were talking about creating an article about analyzing the OSINT so that it's not just information you grabbed. In the meantime, probably look at that spy challenge, right? That's a pretty good example of actually turning it into intelligence. Or as we talked about the week before last, the article on the fake news accounts that we had linked.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say most Bellingcat articles are write-ups of being actionable intelligence.
Yes. Next question, timeline building tools. The one single major everlasting challenge in open source. And I agree with that. Timeline tools There's so many little ones that don't cover everything that I don't know that I need. You guys have a good timeline tool?
I use mind maps. Mind map, especially with Xmind and probably with the FreeMind and other ones, you right-click and change the structure. You can turn it to a vertical timeline or horizontal. And with mind maps, you can paste in pictures and do other flags, so you can show things above and below the actual timeline. It's good. The problem with timelines is that they get very long or very tall, and that can present challenges when you go to export or print it out. But mind maps have been good for me.
I like, I don't know if you guys know it, Nightlab.js. Yeah. That's an interesting timeline tool. It's because you can use it within a Google spreadsheet, and you connect this Google spreadsheet to that, and then it will create a almost perfect timeline for you. So it's really interesting to look into that one, and it's fairly easy to use.
Is that a free tool or a paid?
It's a free tool.
You know, I used to look at the Night Labs tools for timelines, and I haven't for a while, so that sounds really interesting. I'm definitely, please put that in the show notes, the link for that. One other thing that I would say is sometimes I will build them in Casefile or Maltego, but then for your customer, that would be just a mess. So you can go to Canva. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Canva, Canva. It's a really nice photo editing template tool. They've got these infographic tools in there, and you can actually, after you build your timeline in whatever tool you're doing, make a really pretty one in Canva for the final product. It's not the analysis tool though. We do have a question from Leonard Payne asking for step-by-step geolocation. I asked him, in general or which platform, and he says that he sees a lot of posts where people give answers but never a step-by-step on how they got there. What do you guys think?
Well, if he follows the QuizTime account on Twitter, they usually provide within the 280 character tweets that we have nowadays, they do provide some step-by-step tips, or not full write-ups. There are a few write-ups on the Medium page of QuizTime, but a step-by-step explanation of each and every geolocation job or challenge, that will be a really, really big book, because there are so many things you can do. So yeah, maybe it is something we can cover in a blog, because I do think that Technisette and Dutch OSINT guy can also help out with that. And I do know that Michael loves them too. He once in a while tweets a little challenge on Twitter for others to help out. So maybe we can do something on the blog.
So the question that I would have for the listener is, are they talking about photo geolocation or video geolocation, kind of like what Ben Strick did and you, Sector 035, on the Cameroon video? Or are they looking for more geolocation of social activities like with Strava and with Untapped and with Yelp and those types of geolocation? Geolocation as a topic is huge. So I think that could be a really neat skills section of one of our further webcasts, and even a blog post too, or a couple blog posts depending on the type.
Right. I think it'd probably be a whole category of blog posts, because there's so many different types.
Yeah. So we'll stay tuned. Stay tuned.
Yes. Okay. So the next one, Code Sniper. The guy's used that his Twitter name is secure_the_code. He wants us to remind everybody, don't store every password in LastPass. So I think he's worried about storing, either classified, crypto, sensitive stuff on LastPass or any other password vault. You guys have any input on that? How much do you store in your password vault?
For me,
how many do you not store? That's the next question.
Exactly 0, because I don't trust third-party password managers. I have my own methods. I have encrypted USB sticks with those cipher slots on it, or military-grade USB sticks, and that's where I store my passwords on. And I always keep backups everywhere. So No, I don't really like password managers. I know they can really come in really handy, but for me, personally, I'm too OSINT paranoid. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I am the opposite. I use password managers, and I had a management system a while ago, and it wasn't working. You know, with all of the different accounts that we have to create for API keys or for things like dehashed or how many Facebook accounts, and then the email system. It got overwhelming. So yeah, I do use a password manager for most everything, or password managers. I use a couple of different ones. I think to Dutch's point, you really have to evaluate your personal threat model to find out what level of tolerance you have. I'm okay with using a third-party password manager, and you know that's what I've decided. But Dutch, you've come up with a different system. You need to select for yourself what you want to do.
No, like you said, it's whatever works for you, and there's no good or wrong in this.
I think I'm probably in the middle of you, although I don't know for sure, Micah, maybe you're the same where I am, whereas I use a password manager, but I don't sync to the cloud.
I used to not do that. And then life got complicated with passwords I need to share with the wife or the kids or other things, and life got complicated. So.
Okay, so I've got two more for ready. Okay, so the second to last, how to get started on OSINT. And so this is coming from Worrell Scott. And before we even, there's such a huge, how many ways to get started in OSINT. I do want to kind of plug that we have coming up the OSINT Summit, the SANS OSINT Summit. And that is my keynote, how to get into OSINT and how to make that your career. So maybe they can stay tuned for that. I mean, it's a big field, but you guys have your number one tip for getting started into OSINT. Micah.
Listen to Kirby's talk, as it'll be recorded and put onto YouTube.
All right, Dutch?
Be curious.
Be curious. Sector?
Yeah. Don't just ask questions like, how do I do this? Just this question, but try and find the answer yourself. And you get better and better in finding the answers. And that is how you probably can start an OSINT too.
Okay. Technisette.
Well, actually, Dutch stole away my answer. Definitely be curious. Click shit everywhere.
That's
and
right.
Don't be afraid to fail. Because if you're afraid to fail, you might not succeed in finding whatever you're curious about. So, yeah.
All right. I agree with that. Okay, so then, last question. This is an anonymous question. And this is... Person says, I did a few missing person OSINT things recently, but I'm fairly new to OSINT in general. It struck me as being quite different sort of investigation than the malware-related stuff I had done before. Though they didn't hide themselves well, the missing people often didn't have much of an online presence, and it was in very different places online too. Do you have any advice, techniques, or different approaches to this kind of work that you use that's different than cybercrime and threat intelligence stuff? So, tips for missing persons.
I haven't done that many missing person cases, so I'm not sure if anybody else has.
For me, I always try to place myself in the shoes of the missing person, and it can be several cases. Did they run away from home themselves? Do they want to be found eventually? Do they not want to be found eventually? Because that are all pieces of the puzzle which can point you in a certain direction on which platform to search, which search terms to perform, maybe look around the person who is missing, because when, let's say as a scenario, a 16-year-old girl runs away from home and she's away for 48 hours, where will she most likely be? Most of the time she will be near friends, or at least very trusted people, because they want to feel and stay safe, but still be away from the situation they don't want to be in. So you need to I think you need to ask yourself a few questions, and I think it starts with the golden W rules, the who, the where, the when, the why. And that will start to give you some starting points on where to look and how to look. But I think that doesn't necessarily need to be for a missing person. It's for basically every OSINT related research question you might have.
So I've done a couple of them from a corporate standpoint where an employee doesn't show up to work, and the question is, or doesn't show up to work for several days or whatever, and the company becomes concerned. So where is that employee? They might not actually be missing according to the legal definition, but they're missing as far as work goes. And what I generally do is start out with that core stuff, their name, phone number, email address, look at who their family members are and start making those circles, then go into social media. Social media will tell us a lot about who you're with, what people are talking about. There was one person that he didn't have any social media at all, and we couldn't find him, and we were getting close to having to call the law enforcement in to do a welfare check on his house. And then we widened the circle a little bit, went to some of his family members, and found that he was at a hockey game the night before because his sister had taken a selfie with her and her brother in it. So we knew that he was okay from a physical standpoint. And that's why I kind of like going and starting with the core person, moving out, but also keeping in mind what Dutch just said. You know, what are the likely scenarios that are playing out here?
I do think that it might take the person a little bit of time too, because it's a completely different way of working if you look at malware analysis, because all the answers are inside the code that you're looking at after you decompiled it. So all the answers are within your environment that you're looking at. And now you have to go out and find other sources that can give you some more information and that can give you some pivot points on how to search. So it will be a change of mindset. So just keep practicing. And also be aware that when you are going to look into missing people, for instance, that there's a bit of an ethical part that starts playing a role that you don't have when you're just investigating malware.
Agreed, yeah.
That's it, Kirby?
That's all I have for questions.
All right. Thank you to our listeners and our viewers for submitting those. If you are a podcast listener and you want to submit a question, again, you can tweet to one of us. You can also visit our OSINTCurious webpage. There's a form where you can submit a topic for us to talk about here. Anything else that you all want to talk about before we get to the skills part of the podcast, webcast? All right. So let's get into skills. Now, I'm going to share out my screen here. This skills section comes from a conversation that Sector had with Jake Krebs, where they were, Jake actually said that he's really enjoying a tool called Sherlock, which is a Python script that goes out and retrieves information from different websites. You give it a username, and then it will go out to a bunch of different websites. They also talked about using a website out there like Noam or Namecheck. And so the conversation evolved. I have created a tool also called What's My Name? And I just wanted to show you just kind of really quickly the 3 different ways of getting usernames really quickly from different social media websites. The idea is that if we're looking up Kirby and we want to find her on the internet, now I'm not going to do that, Kirby, but if we wanted to do, I know you're like, well, go for it, Micah, challenge accept. Now, but if we wanted to look for her and we knew that her email was curbster@whatever.com, gmail.com, we can take off that curbster and then check to see on a whole bunch of different websites whether that curbster is actually a username that she might use. And then once we get those sites information back that says, oh, on Twitter, there's actually a twitter.com/curbster, then we could go ahead out there and see if that's this Kirby or whether it's somebody else using that name. Now, this technique only works if you have a URL with the username in it. If you're looking for somebody on Fitbit or something like that, Fitbit user IDs do not contain names like WebReacher or Dutch OSINT guy. They are alphanumeric strings. So this is not going to find all of the places on the internet with user accounts. So here's a typical website. This, for those of you that can't see, is knowem.com, KNOWEM.com. The idea here is that if you are trying to increase your social presence, you can go ahead and find websites out there that do not have your username taken. So I'll use myself, WebReacher. And what you do is type in WebReacher in the page, you say check it. And what Knowem does in the background is it, from its servers, goes out to a whole bunch of different websites and says, hey, do you have a WebReacher? Do you have a WebReacher? Now, what I don't like about this is that I have no idea what they're actually checking. The other thing I don't like about it is I only get the most popular results. If I want more results than what's shown on the screen here, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Then I need to click another tab, click another tab, click another tab, and it just gets really click heavy. I like choosing another tool for it. But here's the results. If you look at Blogger, the site has no user named WebReacher there. BuzzFeed, it's available. But if we look over here on LinkedIn, somebody's already taken it. Reddit, somebody's already taken it. So the website's trying to tell you where you can be. What we're looking at is what sites are already taken, where that name is already taken on the site. So what we would do OSINT-wise is we have to figure out how to figure out where the user accounts are for Reddit or for LinkedIn or for Quora, and then go to visit those sites. It's a little cumbersome, and as I said, if you go ahead, you want to search social networks, you got to click on that tab, and then you have to wait for it. It's a little bit challenging to get all of that data, even if you're using Hunchly. So what I did back in 2015 is, Dutch?
Well, I wanted to add, you pointed out you need to go to the actual site and check if the WebReacher account is there, because that's really important, because there might be someone calling him or herself WebReacher, which isn't you, Micah Hoffman.
That's
so
right.
You need to check and double check and fact check and validate.
Yeah, absolutely.
And sometimes you get some wrong feedback from a certain site that says, well, we queried that username and, well, I get a HTTP 200 back. The page exists, so the server says you exist. But the only thing that the web server is actually giving you back when you query it by hand is showing a page, HTTP, error code 200, everything is fine, with the information, sorry, but this user does not exist. Maybe you mean one of these users.
Exactly. And that's why I created this project, is that what I noticed is when I would type in the word WebReacher or whatever my target was to Knowem, first off, I'm giving them the knowledge that I'm interested in this person's accounts, which I don't like doing. Second, I don't know what they're checking. And third, whenever I would use these namecheck or knowem.com, I would find a lot of false positives, like you were just saying, Sector, that hey, there's somebody there on Reddit that's WebReacher, and you get out there after you figure out where to look, and there's no WebReacher there. Whatever they were checking that's magic on the back end, it was wrong. So what I did was I took a little bit of that understanding about how the web works, and I made a tool. And essentially, this is what it is. It's the WebReacher What's My Name project. It's on GitHub, been out there for 4 years now. And what it is a list of websites, and then the expected response if the username does exist, and an expected response if the username does not exist on a site. So for an example here, let's look at this. This is JSON. We talked about this earlier today, name and value pairs. So for the website GitHub, it will check the URI https://API github.com/users, and then where this curly brace account is, that's where it's going to put WebReacher. So if you wanted to false positive to this, false positive check it, just take that URL, go ahead and put on WebReacher, replace that curly brace account, and you can go to the exact place that this script is checking. Now, if it does have a positive result down here, an account existence code, like Sector was just saying, the HTTP response code will be 200. If it also is there, it checks the page content looking for the login :string. If it finds those two things, it says, hey, that user account exists on this website. Otherwise, it will look for the string not found and a HTTP response code of 404. That way, we have the good and the bad. If it doesn't find either of those, then it goes, hey, this detection string is improper. It's not good anymore. Now, to use this, you can use this in 3 different ways. One, I wrote a little script. It's slow, not the preferred way, but in this little repository, you can do that. Or you can go ahead and use one of the other preferred methods. Let me go ahead and switch to my virtual machine here. This is Kali Linux, a Linux virtual machine, but the tools that I'm going to use, ReconNG, is available on Windows, Mac, Linux, it's Python. So I've installed this program on the system, and what I can do is leverage the What's My Name project through ReconNG. So I'm using the command line here. You also can use this via Spiderfoot as well, the great framework written by Steve Michaelif. Here we've got ReconNG. I'm going to go ahead and launch ReconNG and type in my /ReconNG, specify /no-analytics, so no Google Analytics are being sent to Google. Now, I'm going to go ahead and create a workspace to separate my traffic here, just to logically isolate this. I'm going to make this workspace called WebReacher. I'm going to do a workspaces add WebReacher. And now I'm going to use the profiler module. If I show the info about it, we see that I wrote this module, and here's what it does. It takes each username from the profile's internal database table, and it launches it against a bunch of websites, and it pulls the content for where to check from the What's My Name project. So, well, all we have to do is type in add profiles, and I'm going to enter in WebReacher. And let's see, Kirby, can I also search for you? All right. Cool. I'm going to just hit the up arrow here 2 times, add profiles. I'm going to do Curbster. That's right. There we go. Now show profiles, and we see we have 2 entries in this internal database by ReconNG. Now, since we're already in the profiler module, which we see right here, we can just type run. What this is going to do is, in a multi-threaded fashion where it has a whole bunch of different requesters going out and making requests to these different websites, there's over 150 different websites that it's checking. And what it's looking for is Curbster in the URL or WebReacher in the URL of the different web pages. And when it finds it, it'll pull that back and it'll show it to us. Now, all of this is going to show up in that database, the profiles database table, and we'll be able to see it. Now, when we see it on screen, it's going to look a little bit weird because it's going to wrap around the screen because of the resolution I have the terminal at. But let's take a look at this in just a second. It's pretty darn fast, too. Between the two different usernames, we've got 15 different profiles. Let's see. We have 15 different profiles. I'm going to make this, well, we can take a look at it here. See that we've got WebReacher. Let's see. We've got WebReacher, Bitbucket. Here's the URL. Now remember in Noam, we actually had, we saw that the WebReacher was on Reddit, but we didn't actually have the URL. We would have had to figure that out. But here, we actually have that information in the URL right here. So, and we see that it's a coding or discussion-based category. Here we have an exercise app, GitHub. And then what we can do is take this information and export it. We can use the reporting module, CSV, and show info. Oh, sorry. Let's go back to use reporting there, show info. There we go. So this module takes that database content and we'll save it to the local system. And it's going to take stuff from whatever table we tell it to. So we're going to set table to profiles and run. And what it does is it exports those 15 records that we saw here to a CSV at this location on the screen. Now we can copy this and then exit out of the tool and Libra Calc, I think that's here. Nope. There we go, LibreOffice, which is the free Office type of application. We're going to look for that file, paste that in, comma separated, and boom. There's our, let me make this a little bit bigger. Here we have the username, Curbster, and WebReacher. Now, I think one of the things that you're probably noticing now is that, hey, we've only got 4 accounts for Curbster here, but we've got a whole bunch for WebReacher. How come Curbster doesn't show up for Twitter? Curbster, is that your Twitter handle, Curbster? Yeah, but it doesn't show up. That's one of the things that you have to think about when running tools is why isn't this working? Now, it might be that Twitter got overwhelmed. And it's like, hey, you're making too many requests, and told my tool here, hey, we're going to make you solve one of these CAPTCHAs. Pick out the stop signs or the whatever from these pictures. But the tool can't say, hey, there's a CAPTCHA there. So what does it do? It just lets it go. So there may be some false positives here and some false negatives. That's why we look at this and we go, okay, well, this is one perspective. But check this out. In what, 30 seconds, a minute, we now have a bunch of different sites that we can look at for Curbster and WebReacher. Okay, so that's one tool. And that uses the What's My Name project. But last December, some people over in Iran released their tool called Sherlock, which is really fast, cool tool that does the same type of thing in the same type of fashion, but it does it with a different set of sites or some of the different sites. I've downloaded here, and again, the URLs to get to these projects are going to be in the show notes, so check that out. So I've already installed the Sherlock here in my virtual machine, but again, it's just a Python application, so it'll work Windows, Mac, Linux. And I'm going to go ahead and run it by typing Python 3 Sherlock. And if you don't know what to do, you can type in a sherlock.py-h, and it gives you the help. Now what this does is this allows us to do the same type of thing, but it has some extra features. For instance, you want that output in CSV, you send it the -- CSV. If you want it to do other things like use Tor or use proxy or something like that, it'll do that as well. So I'm just going to use -- CSV, and I'm going to type in WebReacher and Curbster. And what it's going to do is similar type of thing. You can see it's really fast, and it's going out to different websites. Now, what this does is it has 3 different detection mechanisms. It's already done. And it has 3 different detection mechanisms. The HTTP response code it will check, and then there's other ones where it will check the error message, and another one it will check the content or the URL to see if that was positive or negative. But here we've already got our results. And this will save the results as, let's do a long listing here, as a text file and a CSV because I did that -- CSV. So if I cat WebReacher.text, here are the different URLs that I can now go to see if these are Micah Hoffman. Bitbucket, Gravatar, GitHub, etc. And for Curbster, let's take a look at the CSV. So cat Curbster CSV, and here we've got a whole bunch. Now in the CSV, you see there's a huge number of entries here. What they've done is they've shown you in the CSV all of them, the ones that came back positive and the ones that came back negative. This last column, or the third to the last column here, says no. We're going to go ahead and look for the ones that say yes. So we just do a simple grep for the word yes in Curbster CSV, And now we have all of these different places that we'll have to check. Everything from YouTube and Twitter to Spotify, Pixabay, Reddit, Roblox. Roblox, is that you? You're me. You don't know? Okay. So
I sign up for everything.
you sign up for everything.
I sign up for everything.
So you can see here that there's a different amount of stuff that's coming back. They're different websites, but some of the websites overlap. The one thing I will mention is that the What's My Name project, some of the websites that it visits are meant to check whether a user exists on pornography sites, maybe even some sexual fetish sites. And the reason is not to freak people out, not to go ahead and be rude or whatever. But the reality is that when we look for usernames, if we're doing an executive assessment, looking at a CIO or CEO, we might want to see if there's any website out there that is X-Hamster or porn site that has their username that they use in the real world for their Twitter account. So if I use WebBreacher on Twitter, and I'm also using WebBreacher on a porn site or something, and that's actually me, then that could be something that would be embarrassing to them, the company, and might be a higher risk thing. So I warn you that if you are using this inside of your corporate network and you run it, then your web-based traffic proxies and things may flag that you're visiting porn websites and some other things. Just something to know.
I would add that those porn websites, I think most smart people would use a different username there. But if you were doing an executive profile and you found that username there, it may not be them. It may be somebody else trying to kind of set up as well, which is always good to know as well, so you can warn them.
Absolutely. If you might find an impersonator, somebody that's signed up with whatever Barack Obama on some website, and you're like, hey, that's not the real one. Good information. So the other project that I mentioned, the Sherlock project, it's at github.com/theyahya, YAHYA/Sherlock. And like I said, a very fast project, and it is definitely worthwhile. So those are some techniques. Again, those are just how do you get those how do you search for usernames quickly across a wide variety of websites that have their username in the URL. I did at one point work with a buddy of mine to try to webify this, but the problem that I ran into, because I would love to just say, hey, go to webreacher.com/whatever and run these searches. The problem I ran into was, as you probably have guessed, when my server makes all of these requests to all of these different websites, those websites will ban my server's IP address. And getting your browser to make those calls and then bringing that information back together, it becomes very complicated. So we're still working on that. Questions?
Yeah, I would love to see that, because I know I have a lot of clients who aren't going to be running Python. So it's really nice to have a GUI. So until then, I send them to namecheck.com or noam.com.
Yep, absolutely.
Also keep in mind that Michael Bazell on his tools section has a nice option for this. You provided a username and it will do new tab pop-ups on those sites, and it works perfectly well.
Great. Cool. Well, I think that we're at the end of our webcast. Anybody have anything else to say? We'll start with Sector. Do you have anything else you want to shout out or talk about?
No. Well, weekly newsletter coming out again on Monday. We recorded this on Sunday. I've been very busy, and I got to start writing that shadow manual.
That's right. Cool. Looking forward to that. Dutch?
No, nothing. I just wanted to make sure for the people in the audience, every 2 weeks there will be a webcast, not every week, because I've got people reaching out. Did I miss something? Where were you guys? Well, every other week we will be there.
Cool. Thanks thanks for noticing that, for saying that. And same thing for the blog content. We're going to try to slow down the production of that too. So thanks for mentioning that again. Kirby?
I just want to shout out again that SAN Summit is coming up. So make sure you sign up, and we've got some great speakers lined up, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. I heard a bunch of other people are going to be coming there. Joe Gray's going to be there. Patrick Laverty from Layer 8's going to be there, as well as David Westcott. And of course, you are going to be there, and Ginsberg. And I will be there as well. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Still time to sign up for the SANS OSINT Summit on the SANS website. And with that,
you will bring OSINTCurious stickers, right?
That's right. Where are they? Okay,
we got them.
So we went ahead and made these. Let's see if I can get it in focus. There you go. OSINTCurious stickers. I will have those at the summit for anybody that wants them. And we'll try to figure out a way to get these to Europe. I know people are asking for them over in London and other places as well. So we'll see if we can figure out a way to do that. Aside from that, I want to thank my guest co-hosts here and for their time, and I want to thank you for listening and for watching us. I'm Micah Hoffman. Thank you so much for being with us for this last bit of time, and stay OSINT curious. Bye.
Bye.